Hey guys, how you doing? Okay, so this is the other project that I'm working on this winter, which is yellow aircraft F-18 single seat version, and a lot of work on this thing that I'm gonna have to do. Started off yesterday on just trying to figure out some of the stuff. So I'm just going to go over some of the stuff that I got to figure out how I'm going to get it done. And I was hoping that any input that you guys have would be greatly appreciated. So, first, probably the biggest challenge that I'm going to face, maybe second biggest, is no, not the elevators. Or the rudders. I'll get to those in a second. But it's actually the elevators. So that is the structure inside the aircraft to try and mount some sort of linkage for the elevators. And let's go over here real quick. I'm looking for something like this, which is kind of a shaft linkage. Having a hard time finding one of these that'll fit. And the shaft, I believe, is about... Let me just show you what the shaft looks like. So that's what the elevator looks like. And there's the shaft that this thing... Where did I put it? There it is. So basically, this is gonna go on there, okay, like that, and then I gotta clamp it with these bolts there. I'm looking for sort of a shaft clamping clevis. I think this is what, it's about 7 millimeters wide. That shaft is about 7 millimeters wide, so gotta find something that'll work there, and then get it in here. And then there's a hole. I don't know if you can see the hole here. That's where your screwdriver is going to go through to tighten up the clamp for the shaft, basically for that elevator there, to get your elevator movement. So that's going to be a tricky one to figure out. Back end of this had to be cut, obviously, for me to gain access to it. So we just cut that. Going to clean up the edges, and then do some priming for paint. All the flying surfaces. It's kind of an interesting setup that Yellow Aircraft did here. This is a really, really old kit, actually. So it's foam core, as you can see here. It's foam core, but it's sandwiched on either sides with ply. And then right at the top here, actually let's go on this one. You can see it better. You can sort of see a line right there. Top piece here is fiberglass. So interesting construction that they did. Same thing with the wings. The wings is balsa with foam core. And the outer... I don't even know what they call these, but anyways, this is all fiberglass. It's a one-piece aileron slash flap. You can separate it here. There's a line drawn here that you can just cut it and make it independent ailerons and flaps on one wing, but I've decided that I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go with one giant aileron and full span flaps, and then I'll just use tailerons for my roll adjustment on approach. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. All right, getting closer up to the front. So originally this thing was designed for a nitro powered, I think it's an Dynamax if I'm not mistaken, EDF. So it's actually about 128 millimeters, What I'm going to be doing though is I'm going to be converting it to electric EDF as opposed to nitro. And I'm going to use this bad boy, which is Jet Fan 120 Eco for that. And I got a 3D printed intake cone here. Challenge number 2 is, as you can see, the intake cone doesn't go all the way down because of these braces here, or mounting plates, I should say, for the EDF. So I'm going to have to come up with a way to get that in there, which probably means that I'm going to have to make a cut in here and in here so that this slides in this way. So I know it's not a perfect solution, but better to have the intake to get the effect to increase the speed of the air as it comes into the EDF by going over this rounded surface here. I can't remember what the effect is called, but there's a lot of well, I shouldn't say that a lot, but there's a couple of videos out there that show the effect of the difference between not having an intake ring and having an intake ring. Significant difference in thrust that comes out the back end. So don't sleep on this, guys. Put an intake ring on your EDFs. Okay. So there's that. So that said, this little compartment here was originally designed for a fuel tank, right? So what I'm going to be doing is converting this to a battery tray, which should not be that hard to do. The other issue that I'm going to encounter is, where do I put my ESC? So I'm going to be running this, which is a Castle 160. It goes up to 14S with a fan on top. And currently my thought is to kind of mount it sort of like this. Just to minimize the travel for the wires to the EDF as well as to the batteries, so you don't lose power or cause any sort of ripple current as well. So basically that's sort of the idea, roughly, as to how it's going to be mounted. A little bit further back here, and then I'll run my wires through this hole back here, coming this way to the EDF. So that's the thought process for that. Okay, next. Cockpit. This is going to be a little bit challenging. So I was able to buy, because the model didn't come with the cockpit, or the glass canopy, I should say. So I bought this thing. And they say that it's for the yellow aircraft single seat F-18. As you can see, that don't look right. So I'm not sure if I can MacGyver this somehow to make it work, but that's sort of the plan. So yeah, that don't look right, but we're gonna try and figure out how we can make that work. Okay, now I'm just gonna open this here, take this out, and we'll just put this over here for now. And we'll take out this, put this over here. Okay. So, as you can see, let's go back here first. As you can see, this is an air retract system that they have in here. I hate air retracts. So originally, these were to operate the air valves. These servo cutouts were to operate the air valves, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use electric retracts, so I'm just going to have to figure out which ones are going to work for this plane, and then I'm going to have to do some reconfiguring in the structure down here for the retracts. Okay, so let's move this out of the way now, and let's try and turn this bird upside down. Give me one sec, guys. All right, let's leave that there for now. Oops. Let's put that there. Didn't work. Okay. Now I'll just turn this over. Okay. Okay, so here's the reverse side. I'm still planning on using these retracts because they're, you can see that they've got a bit of an angle to them. When I say the retracts, I mean the oleos. Because they've got an angle to them and they fit nicely into the cutout that's here. But these air retracts here, I'm obviously going to be taking out. Challenge that I'm going to have is finding a set of electric retracts that fit to this hold pattern, because these aren't just screwed down into balsa, they're actually screwed down into into blind nuts that are in the balsa. So placement is going to be a bit of a challenge there. So we'll see if we can find anything that fits that pattern, and if not, then we might have to do some reconstruction in here to get that to work. Okay, next. Nose retract. So as you can see, it's a very narrow sort of opening to get that to work. I plan on making this much wider, so I'm going to probably cut this all the way back to a size big enough such that when it goes in, like a nose, like the servo for the retract will clear this opening, right? So in other words, a retract that nose retract, similar to stuff that you see with JP Hobby, that has, or even HSD, that has the turning servo literally attached to the nose gear oleo, so that you can turn it, is sort of the idea that I had for this area. The only question is whether or not I will have clearance in here when it retracts, and I think I should be okay because there's really nothing up here. Next, the servos for the wings. So as I said before, for the servos for the wings, I'm only going to use one, and now you guys can kind of see why I decided to do that, because I don't want to have to cut out another space here to put a servo for the flaps. Also, if you look at where this is positioned relative to the entire wing, it's not really positioned very well to be kind of here, where you kind of like to have your control horn to be for the aileron. It's kind of right in the middle of the surface. So that's one of the reasons why I just said, you know what, to hell with it, leave it the way it is, and you have full span flaps and a ginormous aileron, which means I'm going to have to reduce the rate of travel on whatever their throws are to accommodate for the larger surface as well. They say, I believe it was about 40 ounce inch is the minimum requirement for the servos for this, but that was assuming that you were doing aileron and flap. Given that you've got a bigger surface, bigger area, you're going to need more torque to be able to handle that larger surface and the amount of increased drag force that you're going to get from flaps. So I'm probably going to double, if not triple this. Probably going to be putting in maybe around 200, probably about 200 ounce inch. Yeah, I know it's overkill, but who cares? I'd rather have overkill than have it stall out on me. Okay, then of course I'm gonna have to fill wherever I've got some dings and dents and so on, and sand it down, prime it, and then get it ready for paint. So lots to do on this one, and of course LED lights, the whole nine. So yeah, definitely lots to do on this one, but should be an interesting project. The yellow aircraft, single seat, F-18. Anyways, project number 2 for the winter. Houston out.